University of Glasgow and her PG certificate in teaching and learning in higher professional education, and that's also from the University of Bolton. She submitted her PhD, funded for the first 3 years by the University of Bolton, in service user involvement in healthcare provision in December 2017. She is currently a senior lecturer within the Faculty of Health and Wellbeing at the University of Bolton, which is currently ranked #1 in Greater Manchester for student satisfaction and was awarded a silver rating in new government evaluation scheme of teaching. And so I would like you to put your hands together for Bimpe.
Everyone. Hello. For the very first time in a very, very long time, I'm one of those that I literally lost my identity. Like I was said, I wasn't raised there, I was raised in Nigeria. But try pronouncing Bimpe Kuti to a British person. Bimpe? Bimpe? Yeah. So literally I became Bimpe. Everybody knows Bimpe. So I've delivered lots of conferences, seminars and all that, but not to like a fully blown African continent. So it's nice to be able to introduce myself as Bimpe Kuti. I'm not Bimpe Kuti. Even when I go home to Nigeria and I meet a new person, my name is, and it's Bimpe that comes out of my mouth. I'm like, what is wrong with you? You guys are Bimpe. Yes, so I'm Bimpe Kuti. So it's nice to be able to introduce myself properly. And I don't know I'm going to follow in the steps of Dr. Bimbo, but as she said, I'm literally suited and booted. So hopefully I can live up to a little of the insight I'm just going to share to you today. So my focus will be on employment, and I will look a little bit into education as well. The employment side of things I'll look from my own perspective, from my own personal experience. And I am no expert at all on brain drain or brain gain. I'm not an economist in any way, shape or form. My background is public health. I'm a healthcare professional. So just a little bit of insight into what is happening. And Dr. Arlo brought this idea into mind. So I'm just going to share some of that with you. Right, so we'll start. Just before we start, raise your hands if somebody that you know has thought of living in Nigeria or any other African country or has already left. Who's already left? Yeah, everyone. Very few. Yes, exactly. So we've already left. I was going to think, let's ask the question, how many of you have left? Why did you think of living in Nigeria? But that's a question you would almost find in every household. They have a family member, either a parent or a sibling or an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent who has thought of living in Nigeria or who has left already. Why? Why is that? Why does that keep happening? How can we move away from that thought? Is it possible to move away from that thought? Again, going back to Dr. Allen's disclaimer, I'm not asking anyone to move back to Nigeria. I've been here for the past 11 years, so I am not asking anyone to leave Nigeria. But I'll leave you with that thought. And perhaps we can start rethinking this idea and maybe start shifting our focus as well. Next slide. So my take on brain drain, I looked into the health field because I'm interested in anything health. So I just got to look at some of the things that is happening or some of the statistics or data that has been shared around in terms of how we are draining the skills, the expertise, the knowledge, the innovation out of African countries. And according to WHO, their ratio for any country to have enough doctors for its population is 1 to 600. So 1 doctor of every 600 per population. So I found this interesting when Folashade Ogunshola, she is the professor of medicine and the chairman of the Association of College of Medicine in Nigeria. So this article was published by Premium Times, and this was what she said, that Nigeria will need about 237,000 medical doctors, but has only 35,000 working in the country. That's frightening, absolutely frightening. So you can understand why someone would just who just gone to a farm, who has a scar or a cut, would end up dying. Just because they don't have someone to treat that. Just because for someone to clean your wound, they have to put down the deposit, which they can afford or which they have. So this is what she said. So assuming no doctor leaves Nigeria, so let's assume everybody stays. All the game is in Nigeria. We're not draining anywhere. Everybody stays in Nigeria. They don't leave after being trained. So going by the number of medical students that they have coming from College of Medicine in Nigeria every year now, it will take us about 100 years to have the number of doctors Nigeria needs. I think we can increase that 100 years already. Because as of 2016, Nigeria's population was 180 million. So, I can't comprehend those numbers or those figures in my head. So when you think of it, it truly, really is frightening. And when you look at what is going on in the health field, in the health sector, which is such a basic human right, and that we shouldn't even have to be thinking of why people don't have access to healthcare or enough healthcare as well. So, next slide. So, brain drain in Africa. So this is just my take on it, that we seek more sponsorship or assistance from external or international agencies. So a lot of what happens in African countries or Nigerians, Dr. Allo mentioned it before, that we don't do things as a community. Everybody is their own man, me, myself, and I. So when people have their ideas of what they want to do, rather than going to speak to like-minded people within their own country, they go outside or they go to the private sector and they look for those type of people to bring them in. So rather than working with people that are on ground, and the reason for that is what Dr. Bimpe has already said, that we are not investing in education. So why wouldn't a primary school say you must have a certificate from outside of the country before they can recruit you? So that's exactly what's happening. It's as if we are investing in brain drain ourselves because we have the idea, we have the money, we are going externally, we're going internationally, we're going to the private sectors and asking them to come and do what we should be doing ourselves. So obviously, we've said this today, we've kind of recognized that Africa has inadequate local resources. They have that resources, they don't have the resources, and henceforth, the reason why we keep having that gap is going to be a huge effort to narrow that gap of 237,000 doctors to 35,000. How are we going to close that gap? So what is happening now is there is that gap of in the African educational system, in the workforce, and that of the developed world. So worldwide, there is that huge imbalance, which is very detrimental, again, in the health field, in the health system as well, of a lot of healthcare professionals that we see migrating from African countries. Dr. Haller said that earlier, that you hear, I was reading of a cardiologist in New York, and he is like the most inventional top cardiologist in America, and he's Nigerian, wow. And being celebrated. And the doctor who found, I don't know if you've watched the movie Concoction, but it was based on a true life story. And the doctor that actually performed the autopsy on that baseball player that died, that came up with, I can't forget, I can't remember what, CTE. He's a Nigerian that came up with that. It was trying to publish it. It actually went on like a huge battle between him and the Football Federation, because they wanted to hide his finding because they knew it would be detrimental to him, saying what killed this guy was the amount of heat he had into his brain, and he identified that illness. So we have a lot of Nigerians doing amazing things outside of Nigeria, yet you have someone in Africa who just has a cold or a sore in their foot and they die just because they don't have access to healthcare. So it's creating a lot of detrimental factor, and it's not just in the world of health, in tech, in real estate, in accounting, whatever field, in education, whatever field it is in which you work. Trust me, in politics, there are Nigerians who are at the top of the list, who are full actors elsewhere, other than in Africa. There are. One of Dr. Allo's posts that I saw on our Instagram page was 4 Nigerian race who are they MPs now in the UK. So they are leading a whole county. They are leading a whole community in another country. So yeah, so there is a lot we can start thinking. There is a lot of food for thought that we can take away today. And I'm going to use myself maybe as a classic example. I've volunteered already. I've volunteered my services to LAIT, so I'm glad I'm on a side after our presentation. Right, okay, so move on. So we've made contributions, which is good. It's good that we see Africans as high achievers, that we are all high achievers. We want to study, we want to benefit ourselves. We want to empower ourselves. So we've made a lot of contribution to education and employment. The first thing we do well, that we constantly keep doing, is we raise the level and the awareness of the value of higher education. Otherwise, you will not be here today. Everyone here today has been in some sort of higher education system. So among the general population, among those who influence educational policy, we've raised a lot of those awareness. So we might be raising the awareness in the wrong way, because the awareness we're raising now is everybody is leaving Nigeria or leaving every other African country and coming here. The awareness we have of what education is in Nigeria, well, I couldn't have said it better, you've heard it already, of what that is. And again, the influence educational policy has. I'm going to talk a little bit about educational policy because I'm a lecturer here as well. And I can see the stark difference between what I get in terms of, as a lecturer, the policies that guides what I do, that is the setting stone of what I do as lecturers here, how amazing that is. And we're also widening access for education to women, including higher education. So that's one of the contribution of foreign trained nationals. We have a lot of people from African origins who have not had the opportunity, especially women, of having the opportunity to study back home, but they've moved abroad and they don't have that. So it's good that a lot more people from African origins are able to get into education as well. So that's another contribution and another positives. There are lots of international professional bodies, and you would always see an African who is also an active participant of that. So mention international bodies, maybe the WHO has a lot, UN has a lot, and IOM, they have a lot. So the FID, so there are a lot of ways in which Africans are actually playing as full actors in policies, in regulations, in codes of conduct, in standards of how we should be practicing. But you're doing it for countries outside of Nigeria. Whereas those policies, they don't exist where we've come from. But we have the capacity, we have the intellect, we have the knowledge to sit on those international professional bodies and call the shot. Some Nigerians are even chair. For example, I'll tell you, I'm a chair of one major body in my university. So this, actually doing this has been a self-reflection and a self-note to myself. And on my train journey here today down from Manchester, I was listening all the things I have done and every small, you think things are very little. And you have time to sit down about 3 hours of the train, think about what you've done, and you realize, wow. And then I'm coming to a conference where I'm trying to engage and encourage people to give back. Oh well, and it's to myself as well, to do the same. That's the reason I've volunteered myself for one already. So we have a number of networking projects that has made substantial efforts to set up grassroots links in Africa. So Dr. Bimpe mentioned one earlier, that's the Seed Circle. Another one I want to bring your attention to is MIDA, that's the Migration for Development in Africa. So basically this is an agency set up, it's a UN migration agency, and it's set up by the International Organization of Migration. And basically what they are doing is they have adopted a community capacity building concept. And they've come up with a program whereby they would mobilize the competencies of you guys here and several thousands of us in the whole of the UK, and how they can gather us or engage us in that program so that we can benefit another African development. So please have a look at it. Very interesting, very, very interesting. It might give you ideas. It might give you ideas of how you might want to get involved. And like Dr. Bimpe said, you don't have to physically be there. This might be one of the avenues you might want to consider to have a look as well. Also very, very interesting. IOM also just published the World Migration Report, the latest one as of 2018. If you go on that website, you'll find it there as well. And there is a population pyramid. I don't know if everyone is, maybe some of you economists might be aware of what a population pyramid is, that shows the age range of people in terms of migration. And you need to see just all the working class. From 20 up onto the 50s, it's that wide. So basically, with a few more ideas, Africa would just be left to babies and our grandparents and our great-grandparents, because all the working class have migrated away from the country, and that's what that population pyramid is showing. So they have a lot of information that you might want to tap into as well. So in terms of the contribution, we are making the contribution. We are contributing, but our contributing is not reaching where we've come from. It's not going back to where we've come from. So again, the message from taking today, how can we start closing that gap, narrowing that gap, and ensuring that more and more of us engage, wherever we might be. We already live in a global community anyway, so we can be creative in terms of how we want to get involved. Thank you. So, some of the challenges that foreign trained nationals might think. Individually, we've said it, I myself, I own up to it, and me, myself and I think in my own word, they don't really need me. What can I do? Where will I get to? In terms of achieving things, again, it goes back to this government thing. I promised myself I'm going to mention the government today, so I'm not. So do they really need me? Do they really appreciate whatever I have acquired? You will be surprised at how much you know and how much you have acquired. When I tell you a little bit about my personal experience now, you will realize that there are so many things, because you've come to live in a foreign land where everything is structured. There is a system. Everything works. Whether you've gone into education or not, you've just automatically gained a lot of life skills. By living in a community where things work, you put something in, you see the results. You don't put something in and you're questioning it or you're doubting it. So you've already gained a lot of skills anyway, regardless of whether you're in education or not, if you're outside of your own country. So there is that thought that a lot of foreign nationals think. They think that, do they really need me? Do they really appreciate whatever I have acquired? Well, how are you sharing your story? How are you sharing what you've acquired? What platform are you using? Again, going back to networking. So that's something that might be bringing a lot of foreign trained nationals' mind. Well, another one is we have a lot of projects in Africa. They are all centered around NGOs. NGOs, when I tell people what I do, or my colleagues see what I do, I was sharing, my friend in Nigeria said, oh, Bimpe, please send me a copy of this. See, I've called myself Bimpe. Right? Yeah, right. Send me a copy of your CV, and just to see how you structured it, so maybe I can follow the format and revamp my CV and things like that. And I sent it to her, and she looked at it and said, are you crazy? What are you doing in the UK? There are a lot of NGOs in Nigeria that would require that you can work for. So there are a lot of NGOs, yes. There are a lot of private sectors, yes. They do good work. If anyone has not come across, she's a Zimbabwean economist, I can't remember her name, but she wrote a book called Dead Aid. Exactly. So you're aware of her. I kind of like her argument, and she's come under fire a lot by a lot of NGO organizations. She's come under fire by a lot of people. But how dare you say NGO organizations have a vested interest? Because basically, what she was saying is we do not need aid in Africa. We just need jobs. Yeah. Basically, that was her argument. So she's done a lot of fantastic work around similar concepts in terms of why we should be thinking about Africa, or rethinking the way we develop work in Africa. So yes, we have a lot of those NGO organizations, those private sectors, but are they in a way stifling our growth? Are they in a way still draining us, even though we ought to, in our mind, we're thinking they're there for us? So it's something worth thinking as well. So that on its own still creates challenge. That why do we keep going to the NGO organizations? Why do we keep going to the private sectors? Why can't those ideas that we have ourselves, why can't we just mobilize ourselves into action and come up with the same thing that we're giving to them? And then they take it and it becomes their concept. And they sell it to someone else. And they go somewhere else and they use that concept again. So not saying NGO organizations are not great, they're not brilliant, but it's something we're thinking about that. It still creates a challenge for foreign trained nationals that are looking to them that, oh yeah, go back to Nigeria and work for WHO, go back to Nigeria and work for Center for Disease and Control, and things like that. And again, still seeking all the high-paying top jobs. So the research and academic community are not embedded or involved in that. How many professors or university lecturers would you hear are involved in research, or they are working closely with the NGOs or the private organizations too? So that's another challenge as well, because if the professors and the lecturers and the doctors in Nigerian universities invite all the professors and lecturers who are foreign trained abroad and they collaborate and do something, we might start something. So that's another challenge, that the academic community is not engaged. So where do I start from if you're thinking of going back home to your country? We'll come back to that when we go to some banter and discussion later. So from my personal journey, what I would say is don't underestimate the impact of small things. Sometimes the simplest of concepts you might have or steps can be tough for you to put together to do, because they still require some thinking and some effort. And so I'm sure Dr. Alo's brains and bottle brings it. When you think of it really, down to it, it's a simple concept, but my goodness, the work that has gone into that, because I know on a personal level, the shared work that has gone into that. So no matter how little that idea is, no matter how little it is, you can start your own effort. You can start your own think time. And whatever that think time is, start putting in some effort into that think time. Because we have the capacity. African countries have the capacity to become full actors. We have the capacity to become full actors when it comes to education, when it comes to employment, when it comes to enterprise. Only if we start paying attention. And we start paying attention to that given area as well. So like I said, my journey here, I've progressed from when I started my master's. My master's in public health basically spinned off my career and got a funded PhD. And again, telling you that how we Africans do well, it was funded and we were going to be interviewed, and there were 5 candidates. Of that 5 candidates, I was the only black, and I immediately told myself, I'm getting this research job. Because it's exactly what I have trained myself for when I did my public health masters. I know anything around health service improvement, health service development, changing health policy. I know it all. I don't care who all these 4 white guys or blokes are. I am getting this job. And I did. I prepped myself and I got it. So, whether you're aware of it or not, UK actually has its own system of brain drain. I don't know if you've heard of KTP. Knowledge Transfer Partnership. Yeah. So knowledge is the idea basically where organizations or companies work in collaborations with higher education institutions that they say, oh, give us your best, the best and the brightest to come and develop this tool or this technique, help us improve our service. So they kind of have their own brain drain of it, but they're smart at the way they do it. They give you, but they get you back. Which is basically what happened in my case. So when I was doing my PhD, NHS Foundation Trust came to my organization that we need a clinical service manager to help us look at the way we deliver our healthcare services to patients and the public. And they said, oh, if you have a lot of PhD candidates in the health field, get them to apply. 7 of us applied. I told myself, this job is mine. And I got it again. So we all have that. That's part of what I'm saying, that once you're here, you're in a system that works, you already have gained skills anyway, you already have that life skills anyway that can help you. But what happened is I was drained from the University of Bolton for a few years. The University of Bolton gave me back as a lecturer in 2015. And in 2 years, I became a senior lecturer. And in another year, I'm already talking to my executive dean of how I should come up with a new policy on how we recruit students and retain students. And she saw me yesterday and said, oh, Bimpe, you know that email I sent you? Actually, you're going to go with me to the business office. So you come and deliver the presentation yourself. So I've seen here how I've grown, how I've steadily grown, progressed, and maintained myself. And I'm starting to pick up things, and I was researching this. There are a lot of ways I can give back, I can engage, I can network, and I can share my expertise and start looking for those type of opportunities. So, finally, my last slide, next one, is just for some food for thought for you, that if you leave, will you be more successful than if you stay? Something to think about. It depends on what your circumstances is, where you are. It depends on what you've studied. Actually, it doesn't even matter what you've studied, because the aspect in which you give back might not even have anything in relation to what you studied at all. And it might be, like Dr. Bimpe said, funding something, starting something, storify yourself. Tell a story. How many of you know HIP for the E for the hippopotame? Every time my uncle came and said, Bimpe spells, I said Bimpe again, sorry, Bimpe spell hippopotamus. That's what I did. HIP, and that was how I spelled hippopotamus to him. So whatever your story is, it is relevant to someone else. Someone else has experienced it. So don't sit down there and think, oh, someone will think I'm stupid for saying this, or someone will think, what planet are you on? Trust me, someone will relate to you, and you might be surprised. Thousands of millions might relate to you, and then you have your own startup, or whatever it's called on Instagram. So how do you give back? So we communicate very easily already. We travel quickly. She traveled on the boat yesterday. She's here. We travel quickly. We already have the ability to generate very quickly collaborations between developed countries and underdeveloped countries. Well, why not let's do more of that? Is it about the money? We need to rethink that. People who don't leave Nigeria are about the money. Doctors and nurses are not leaving Nigeria to go to Australia or Canada because of the money. It's just because they're shattered of what they've seen and not been able to do the job that they said they'll be able to do, which is save lives. And some of them are reaching into their own pockets to have to treat a patient. So they're just fed up. So it's not just about, oh, let me just go for greener pastures, earn some pounds. So people are leaving just because nothing works. There is no system. There is no structure. So I'll leave you with that. And the last thing, my favorite quote, you don't have to be great to start. You just have to start to be great.